Hi, it's Lee, and welcome to the Tesla Economist. Who is Tesla's real competition? Or perhaps, what is it even? Maybe a better question when it comes to just EVs. We hear about how much competition there is out there for Tesla each day, but in reality, what are they really talking about? They also like to add in the fact that Tesla's market share is dropping. However, Tesla are still making more cars than ever before. So how can Tesla's market share be decreasing whilst their sales are increasing? Tesla must be taking market share from someone somewhere. But they're somewhat arbitrarily referring to the electric vehicle market. And obviously, when you are the first in the market, you practically have the whole market, like Tesla had with EVs. From there, new entrants come into the market and thus dilute Tesla's market share. I mean, there are tens of other companies out there making EVs in decent quantities now. But Tesla's market share, when it comes to all vehicles, including ICE, has been increasing relentlessly. EVs are still a relative niche when you look at overall global sales relative to ICE, implying that Tesla's barely scratched the surface of their actual market share of vehicles. BMW still sells more cars, and Tesla is now competing closer to Toyota prices. The main holdup, though, is still batteries, and now we heard that Tesla are using all the batteries that they have, and whenever there are any excess cells, they can go into megapacks. And if there's not enough for vehicles, then there'll be fewer megapacks that'll be made. It sounds like vehicles get priority, which you might think that vehicles are more profitable per kilowatt hour cell compared to megapacks, so that would make sense to prioritize vehicles. However, that is not the reason. We're told that it's simply much easier to ramp up and down production at Lathrop than it is with the vehicle production lines, which may still mean that megapacks are more profitable per kilowatt hour sold. It's still early with energy though, and as we get to see it ramp up more this year, we'll get a good indicator on potential margins. Anyway, so there are all these EVs out there that are competing with Tesla and taking away Tesla's market share, except they're not taking away sales, they're simply making the EV market larger. But all the so-called competition are making sacrifices somewhere. Most of them are making a loss on their EVs, which is obviously a fairly sizable sacrifice. However, the vehicles themselves are all coming up short too. People say that Ford has caught up, offering 312 miles of range with the Mach-E. Sure, that is a good number. Not many offer ranges over 300 miles, and especially not at that price point. You know, obviously aside from Tesla, that gives 10% more range than the Mach-E, with a 17% smaller battery. It even costs more than the Tesla now. And Ford don't get the battery subsidies, or at least not yet. And every single competitor still makes a net loss, except for potentially BYD, that may now be profitable with their EVs. If so, then likely not by much. The majority of BYD's profits still come from their mobile handset business, and BYD may be an actual competitor for Tesla, or at least I think the closest. Like I said, every non-Tesla EV is pretty much making a net loss. It's Tesla's manufacturing and engineering that is making the difference. And BYD are doing well. They're using structural battery packs, and with their own in-house cells. They're going to be the low-cost electric car, and they will do well in some markets, just depending on what level the protectionism is in other nations with a local car industry. But people treat BYD and Tesla like they're both fighting for the same space, as if it's zero-sum. You see how competitive some anti-Tesla, pro-BYD investors are, but some people want to live a little too, and don't want such basic cars as a BYD. Some people like a loud stereo, and obviously self-driving, and infotainment system, and good handling. BYD is certainly not Tesla, but they are an early mover to the vertically integrated in-house battery and structural battery packs. No one else appears to be this far ahead in production. As a result, they offer an electric car at a price parity with ICE. And that's what it's about, making affordable electric cars for the masses through manufacturing. That is Tesla's competition. We know how much EVs cost to produce relative to the specifications of the vehicle, or at least comparable with Tesla. And if legacy autos aren't using gigacastings, structural packs, and all sorts of other cost-saving manufacturing efficiencies, then we know whether or not they're making a loss. With Tesla at these new prices though, no legacy autos will be able to compete against Tesla with similar specs, or at least not making a profit doing it, unless they do some of these Tesla manufacturing cost savings. I mean, look to the extreme that Tesla is taking it, and able to get their costs this low. Oh, plus unions and dealer networks, and advertising of course. In fact, now I think about it, with all these headwinds against legacy autos, they're actually doing an outstanding job to have even gotten where they have today. You see, if any legacy wants to remain in business with electric cars, then no one can afford to scale up if they keep making losses, at least with their current techniques. Just imagine how much they would lose if they were selling just 1 million units a year and trying to compete with Tesla on price at the same time. They can't. They simply have to charge more than Tesla. All legacy autos need to make sure their brand is in some way a premium to Tesla, or at least some niche for Tesla that is worth paying more for the consumer. This is why I think Mercedes and Porsche have some of the biggest chances of becoming players in the EV industry, and they're both moving early enough to the transition. Porsche started very early on relative to the other legacy autos with the Mission E, which became the Taycan, and Mercedes have over half a dozen electric vehicles out already. It would appear that electric vehicles seem to resonate well with Mercedes customers, and they're making big efforts on securing battery supply. These brands don't need to go to the extreme efforts in order to save money and costs. They may eventually move to structural battery packs, but likely using CATL's version or someone else, rather than investing in it themselves, and probably no gigacastings. They will still likely bring out new model refreshes regularly too, as another competitive advantage over Tesla, to give people a reason to spend more on their electric car. If these legacy brands end up making more profit on their EVs, then they can actually justify letting it cannibalize their ICE business. But they're still going to be in small quantities. Think about how many of one type of electric Mercedes EV will sell compared to the Model Y. They're never going to get close to that sort of economies of scale that Tesla have. In fact, no one can. It's catch-22. In order to have that many sales, you need amazing economies of scale in order to get the costs down, so you can get the prices down, which is only achieved by having massive amounts of sales in the first place. Alright, so anyway, who are the real competition? Well, what's the hardest part of producing an electric car? Making a decent one that actually makes a profit. The most expensive element being the battery. Therefore, perhaps the biggest competitors are battery manufacturers. Perhaps CATL may also enter the electric car market, more than they are currently. I mean, it's just as arbitrary as an electric vehicle battery manufacturer vertically integrating into cars as it is a vehicle manufacturer vertically integrating into batteries. Perhaps it's easier to learn how to make electric cars than it is make the batteries. I mean, there's plenty of small EV manufacturers that have managed, which are nothing to the size of CATL. However, Tesla have also taken their vehicle manufacturing to never-before extremes. The gigacasting has evolved into the parallel manufacturing process, where vehicles will cost even less to produce. We don't, however, know how they'll end up looking though, but apparently they may be for sale for around $25,000. We've been promised an exclusive day of when we get to see the new Gen 3 vehicle revealed. This may very well be the biggest event in Tesla's history, the reveal of the car that might take Tesla up to 10 million sales a year. The car that might be the future robotaxi. Also, Tesla has the brand as the mainstream electric car. Who else could ever make an electric car with one model that sells over 1 million units a year? I just can't see it happening. So basically, no one else can make an EV as affordable as Tesla, especially once they have finally figured out all the new processors. And of course, this will not be any EV, but fit with hardware that could also potentially allow the vehicle to drive itself. If there's no one else going to these levels of manufacturing, then there's not going to be anyone else profitable around Tesla's price point. And like I said, all competitors need to niche or market themselves more prestigious than Tesla, who don't need to go to such lengths at trying to cut costs because their brand is so valuable. And Ford, who is doing what it can to add value and utility into their products like the Lightning and their new electric Explorer and SUV, grabbing market segments before anyone else gets there. I'm not sure Tesla will ever make a full-size SUV. I think they're going to be more focused on mass-produced vehicles from here. And remember, if FSD is solved, the largest amount of profit comes from there, which will be available on every Tesla, whether big or small. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.